a good friend.
Hello. Welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti. Here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. As a disclaimer, this channel is for entertainment purposes. These are my opinions, and I'm not here to slander anyone. But let's get started. So today, I want to dive in on the key aspect that a lot of us are really thinking hard about now that I've dove into the timeline and put forth evidence to back up Mr. Kohberger's innocence. And the key concept in this theory, if you will, is the fact that Mr. Kohberger may have fell back into a destructive pattern. I'm not saying that he went straight over there to Washington State University with a mindset of he was going to do wrong. I'm saying that more than likely he got to Washington State. He started working hard, working with his studies, and maybe his social agenda wasn't, quite as good as he hoped it would be. He ran into an old friend, probably not in that order. He probably first started going to the bar, having a few drinks, which any addict will tell you is a absolute no-no. Because once you start to drink alcohol, your inhibitions are lowered and things that normally wouldn't make sense start to make sense. And then he ran into an old acquaintance from Pennsylvania that he knew. And that being Mr. Kopacka. And that's where things probably begin to spiral down. And again, I'm going to do a video and I'm going to really point out some things that backs up what I'm saying right now. I'm not going to do that in this one because that's not the topic that I'm discussing in this one. The topic that I'm discussing is the Kopacka angle. Because it's my belief that the informants were not intentionally setting up Mr. Kohberger. It's my belief the informants were setting up Mr. Kopacka. And Mr. Kohberger, just by dumb luck, being Kopacka's ride-along, or Kopacka being his ride-along, being Kopacka's ride, basically, and delving into the illicit substances that Mr. Kopacka was, that was BK's downfall in this. Because he's caught up in something that probably wasn't even meant for him. And the reason I say that is, first of all, when I was watching the 11/11 True Crime critique on my video the other day, and I did the reaction video, one thing in that video that she did really stuck out to me. And one thing I'd never considered before, and that was the value of that K-bar knife on Amazon. If y'all happen to catch that, she showed the Amazon sheet on the knife showing the ASIN number. What I don't think anybody paid attention to was how much that knife cost. That knife was $95 on Amazon. So that knife not only had a value of being a weapon to a drug dealer, but that knife also had just straight value. Okay, that was a $100 knife. Now, I imagine if you take a knife, a $100 knife like a K-bar or a Kershaw knife to a drug dealer, and it's going to get you some things. And for those of you out there that think drug dealers don't trade for goods, well, you've obviously never been around drug dealers, okay? If you were to go into a drug dealer's home, you'll find that they have all kinds of stuff, weird stuff, okay? Tons of it. And about 90% of it came from people bringing it to them and trading it to them for narcotics. I mean, they'll have four-wheelers, motorcycles, boat motors. It's unbelievable. Jewelry, the things that they have. Knives, guns. I mean, it is a very common practice for a drug dealer to trade for tangible items rather than cash. And you'll just have to trust me on that one. But my point to this is something happened between December 8th and December 14th. Okay, they got the warrant back from Amazon that listed the people who had purchased the Ka-Bar knives. I imagine that blanket warrant had a lot of people on there. And they're not going to be able to just go through each and every person on there that had purchased that Ka-Bar knife from Amazon and get a judge to issue search warrants for their premises. Okay? Because that's not enough probable cause to get a judge to issue a search warrant. So they always have to have something else to get that search warrant on an individual's home, because that is the big one. All right, to get a search warrant on an individual's home, you've got to have strong probable cause before a judge will sign that warrant. And just a blanket Amazon list of people who had purchased knives isn't enough. Now, what is enough is a blanket list of knives purchased through Amazon along with an informant statement. And you'll always hear me go back to that, because it's almost always an informant statement that leads to real success in any investigation. And that's just a fact. So when we look at this timeline, all right, right here we've got, you can see on between December 2nd and December 6th, when TF is arrested in Spokane on his absconding warrant, he's transferred back to Latah. Now on December 8th, they get this warrant back from Amazon. They got a list of who has the knives, but they don't go in and implement the search warrant for Kopacka till December 14th. So that's 6 days. So those names on there, I mean, that gave them a lead, but it didn't give them a lead that would lead to one individual and then get a judge to actually sign a search warrant for that individual. So what I believe is sometime between December 6th and December 14th, somebody implemented TF and TR in the atrocity. Now, to tell you who I believe that was, I believe that was the person who drew the schematic of the house for them. And that would have been, in my opinion, EB. But I've got some more evidence on that. I'm not going to dive into that one in this, but I believe EB didn't actually give up Kopacka or put Kohberger's name in. I believe EB gave up TF and TR. And then they turned TF into a federal witness, a federal informant, and then he implicated the patsies. And the patsy that I believe he had set up to implicate was Brent Kopacka. Now, his statement, along with that Amazon warrant, would have led to a judge signing a search warrant for Kopacka'S apartment. And I believe they went in there and they got that knife, and they didn't go in there and get the knife, excuse me. I believe they went in there and they didn't find the knife. And they took Mr. Kopacka'S DNA This is my belief. Of course, all this is sealed, but I believe they ran Kopacka'S DNA against the knife sheath found at the scene. And unbeknownst to the assailants that planted it there, thinking they were implementing Kopacka, it didn't have his DNA in that button snap, and they couldn't match him to it. So even though they had their suspect laid out, in all sense of the words laid out, he didn't match the DNA in the knife sheath. So they obviously couldn't stop there. They had to find the person whose DNA matched the knife sheath. And that's when I believe TF and TR vaguely gave up Mr. Kohberger. I don't think they knew him that well. They may knew a few things about him. They knew that he was with Kopacka the night of the atrocity when they had him come over to the house to pick up some drugs. But other than that, I don't think they knew too much about him, because I believe that Mr. Kohberger was nothing more than a piggyback to Mr. Kopacka. And I hope that my buddy, I say he's my buddy, I really like him, A.R. Hayes, I hope that he doesn't mind, but I threw him some questions on a video, I think it's been a couple of months ago now, and he was kind enough to respond with his thoughts, and I thought it was absolutely excellent the way he explained it. It's my favorite A.R. Hayes video, and it may be my favorite A.R. Hayes video because he was directly responding to things that I had said. Maybe I've got some narcissism in me, but I really believe it was just his best video, period. And I hope he doesn't mind me sharing it. I'm going to put it in the description below, but I'm going to share a good portion of it in this video. AR, I hope you don't mind. If you do, I guess you can hit me with one of those copyright things. But, man, I just think it was excellent. And this video, please watch it, because this video really impacted my thoughts on the scenario that I'm actually believing happened now. So if you don't mind, take a look at Mr. A.R. Hayes' response to the piggyback. In fact, it's not even my term, that's his term, the piggyback. Let's see, how do I get out of this thing? There we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. And without further ado, Mr. A.R. Hayes.
Oh, I love it when somebody pushes me to open my mind and think about something, and then obviously share my opinion based off of their thoughts and their theories. Jay Roddy gave me a great thinking moment as he threw a theory out there that he wanted my opinion on. For those of you that don't know, just like he stated in his video, we have not had a face-to-face conversation. We've never had the opportunity to shake hands and discuss anything, even outside of true crime, much less the Idaho 4 true crime case. He laid out a concept in regards to narcotics, the entire surrounding game that surrounds narcotics, and how the end result of all of that can be packaged together in an end result of a quadruple homicide. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to share with you my opinions. I respected his. Now we'll see how he feels about mine. I'm A.R. Hayes. This is Convict's Thoughts. Let's jump right into it. The concept in his mind is Bryan Kohberger had fallen back into the narcotic ballgame. Could be very true, could be possible, because that's what addicts have such a tendency to do. Now, I don't know from the past how deep and into it Kohberger possibly was. If he had gotten to the point to where he was having addiction issues that can carry forward in life, even when you set it aside and decide that you no longer want to do it anymore. It's still an urge, it's still a craving. It's a lot like smoking cigarettes. You can try to quit, and you might even accomplish it for a short period of time, but the minute you delve into one more, now you're a pack in, now you're a carton, and before you know it, you've smoked again for the next 78 years, only wishing you had never started again. That snake bite of the narcotics, no matter which one that you fall prey to, whether it be a downer, an upper, they reel you back in. I've watched it time and time again, and I do respect the people that have come out and said that I personally have never dove into that arena within life. You're right, I've never personally dove into having an addiction issue in narcotics myself. Doesn't matter if it was a dabble, it doesn't matter if it was a snake bite. I personally never jumped in. But that doesn't mean I wasn't around it. In the lifestyle that I lived, 90% of those people were in the narcotic situation. I myself never really dabbled in the game other than collection and sometimes ensuring that a delivery is made appropriately. So I've kind of been in a wider spectrum than just the addiction aspect. Now, he told his thoughts that Kohberger had fallen back in, got bit by the snake again, and fell into the trap. Maybe was using again. And he's explained it very well in regards to what we used to call piggybacking. Now, everybody's got a little bit of a different word about it, but piggybacking is when you yourself either did not have the finances or the known connections to get what you were needing or wanting. So in that scenario, you would ride as a piggyback with somebody to a place or hangout spot where everybody was dabbling at the time. Everybody shared. Pretty much what they would do, what we used to call it, is they would get you lit. I know I hate to use the old terminology, but many know it to be true. Whether you be smoking a little bit of the green stuff and it was puff, puff, pass, or whether you be slamming and you just shared the snake bite as you went along. It was always kind of a hookup, piggyback situation. Now, in some of those scenarios, because you were not bringing money to the table and you were utilizing somebody else's not only connection, but their own product, you brought something to the table that you could trade. In this sense, what Pavarotti very eloquently put was, could the knife sheath and the actual weapon that goes within it to be used in the crime, could that have been a trade and barter item to get yourself a few hooked up moments, to get lit a couple of times? Typically weapons within the narcotics game is one of the hottest and most valuable trade items there is. Because people within that game can either utilize them as their own protection, or they could trade them even farther along into a higher part of the system that would give them more product in exchange for bringing them weapons. Because you have to remember, within that realm of life, the majority of people are unable to pass a background check to get their hands onto weapons. Now, another part of that is even if you could pass that background check, you don't want to put your name into a system that could tie you back to a weapon. So it's very easy within that realm to trade and barter, each of you getting something that better suits your need. An addict is able to get their hookup, where the people that are providing are getting their protection, their weapons, without putting their name out there on any sort of documentation. It's all under the table. It's all behind closed doors. It's very private. Now, another realm of this situation is once you're somewhat indebted, because not every time with the objects that you bring to the table to trade for said hookup are wanted or accepted. So at that point in time, they shake their head and they look at you and say, you're indebted to us. Meaning when something comes to the table and they need a favor, if they need somebody touched up, or they need somebody to go take something that does not belong to them, go catch them a car, go find them some sort of hit on a product area, well, you're indebted. So now, you're gonna run with the cronies to go make sure what needs to get done gets done. And then when you fulfill that, your debt can either be completely paid or somewhat paid, but it will keep you in the realm in good graces to be able to get you more score, more item, more hookup. Because now you built a little bit of that trust. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't always work out perfectly because, just like Pavarotti said, you could be thrown to the wolves in a heartbeat. You are expendable. So what? You bring a weapon here or there, or you go handle something that needs to be handled. That doesn't mean that you're a part of the crew or somebody or even necessary to everything happening or going on. You're expendable. So yes, because most actual higher level syndicates that are dealing within areas have gotten to know most of the task force either personally or through connections that can speak to them. And what does that matter? Well, when the heat starts getting pressure placed upon that very syndicate or that group of individuals that are not only dealing, but they're actually running almost a business-like atmosphere in the area, they'll kind of push somebody to that task force through informants, through witnesses, through dropping of evidence in a case. I mean, he utilizes the idea that the sheath was very well placed. It could be a planted piece of evidence, which in his theory makes sense if somebody traded a knife with a knife sheath and all of a sudden a crime takes place that is there for a reason for people to see and learn from and get the gist of don't F with us. Well, now you have a piece of evidence that doesn't tie back to anybody important within the organization. It actually ties directly back to your expendable, indebted addict. Now, I get the gist of, he's laying out a foundation of how could Bryan Kohberger be somewhat tied to the Idaho 4 quadruple homicide that took 4 innocent lives, Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan, in a very devastating, ugly, graphic manner. And what he has to say absolutely makes a lot of sense. As many of you have heard me discuss, I feel like narcotics are in play. And I've even named different organizations or people that I feel like could have very, very specific ties to why this very crime happened. Where I feel a little bit different in my mind is, do I personally tie Bryan Kohberger solely into this situation? Because I do understand where Pavarotti's vision is, and I get where he's trying to get with this. And I haven't quite gotten to the exact same point where I believe Kohberger is involved. I'm not there. Some say they're on the fence. I'm not even quite on the fence as of yet. But I could understand it more so in a scenario in line with this very one. If Kohberger was connected to other individuals that were within the lifestyle, and I believe there's a couple around this scene that were all addicts that were considered to be expendable. These would be what I would reference as the piggybackers, not just one, not just Bryan Kohberger. I have other people that I've laid out that I feel as though could very much be piggybackers that also would be indebted, and that could lead to my theory of a multi-perp situation. He describes it very well, and he makes reference to it where there's possibly a couple people involved as well, and I'm on that sense myself. Do I feel as though there was half the city involved? No, I do not. I do not go that far. I don't think it's that big of a surroundings of this home and the victims. Why? Because I think that would be too visible. I think this was a point being made, and it's very graphic, and it's very devastating, but it's made by a smaller scale of people involved for the simple reason the more that would have been involved in this, more heat on the upper levels of where the decisions were being made for this to have to happen would have been placed. Yes, I think there's very key pieces still in different realms of this case. I believe there could very possibly be a tie within the law enforcement arena. I do believe there is a tie within the distribution and trafficking arena. There are key integral parts of a very systematic organization that was getting to the brink of being snitched on. I believe the rumblings were starting to happen, shaking the waves. And at the end of the day, a decision had to be made to make a point and silence these people, not so much by going directly at them, but they made a very valid point with this horrific crime. And now people are scattering, because the heat's still on, ladies and gentlemen. There's still a major investigation taking place, not so much just at the state level. You're talking about a wide-range federal level investigation.
Now, I believe I said implemented TF and TR earlier. I meant implicated. I will get 100 comments over saying that incorrect. So let me clear that up. Now, if you don't think that was an excellent explanation of the piggyback, then I don't know what to tell you. I thought it was flat out perfect. But the last thing you heard him mention there was about the feds. And I did a video last night on the federal aspect of this case and why Miss Ann Taylor is going to have an uphill battle as she makes her counter argument of drugs being involved in this case that I believe she will make. And so apparently does Howard Bloom. Imagine that. But that video I released last night, it was members only, and I'm going to release that later on tonight for you so that everybody can view it and give me their thoughts. There is some, I put some controversial information in there, and it's receipts but I can't verify them, like I said in the video, 1,000%, because of the way that the federal indictments are they're all hidden. Now, there is a way for me to verify it 100,000%, and it's just going to take me some time to do. I'm going to have to use the Pacer system to do it, and it is time consuming, and I will do that in the future. But right now, I'm going to just continue to focus on things that aren't quite that difficult to verify. And once I get everything else verified, then I'll bust into the Pacer system and I'll figure out the correlation, and I'll verify everything 1,000% for you. If I make it that far. But please post your thoughts to this video. Post your comments, and criticisms as well. Post anything that you'd like to post. Just call me the post office. No, I don't know what I'm saying. Like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Pavarotti, he is